Hey everyone, Reaper here again with another video. This time I wanted to revisit an old series I had years ago called Underrated, Undervalued books. I was doing this about maybe, I think the last one of these came out maybe 3 years ago, so I thought I would come up with a couple more books and continue on with it. I'm probably going to do another video in this series, but after that, we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. But anyway, for those that remember that series, what I did was I tried to pick out books that sometimes people, I mean, obviously you know of these books, but a lot of times that I felt that some of these books were overlooked. Now, since doing some of those earlier underrated, undervalued books episodes, like numbers 1, 2, 3. Some of those books have become highly sought out. Okay, and some still sort of not so much. But the purpose of this series is just to point out that there are some books that I feel are, in my view, either underrated or undervalued or both. This could be because maybe it's a great cover, yet it doesn't get that much recognition, or it's a well-known book perhaps, but is not as valuable as you would think. It could be any one of those variables. So anyway, I got a set of books in my hand, and I'll talk to you a little bit about them, and let's get started. All right, the first one I have here, okay, is House of Mystery number 93. I think that this is a wonderful, I believe it's a gray tone cover, robot cover, and you hardly ever see it. And when it does pop up, it's not very expensive, which is great for me because I like to buy multiple copies of this book because I love the cover so much. But here it is. House of Mystery number 93. I mean, that's a pretty cool cover. This is a classic cover that goes back, I believe this came out in the late 50s. Really cool. Really cool. Show you again. But it's not one of the more, I don't think, one of the more famous House of Mystery covers. There are a lot of House of Mystery covers that sort of just, until you get to obviously the Bronze Age, that's when, it's with, I almost said Swamp Thing, that's House of Secrets. But that's when, you had a lot more horror, and Neil Adams started doing some famous covers. But there was a period of time where, it's just, they were putting out some pretty decent covers, but they're not really talked about or really shown off. I thought that was it. Now, this one I think has picked up a little bit of steam over the last couple of years. So I don't know if it's necessarily undervalued, but I still tend to think that this is a little underrated compared to who this character or this version of the character is often compared to. We have Ghost Rider number 1. This is the first appearance of the Western Ghost Rider. I think his name is Carter Slade. Like I said, it's not necessarily cheap. I mean, this is a nice 6.0 copy. Even a copy like that will probably run you at least late 2023, like where I'm doing this video, runs you like almost $200 or something like that, give or take a few dollars. So it's picked up a little bit. But I think, though, he's often overshadowed, rightfully so, by the Johnny Blaze, the Bronze Age Ghost Rider. So I do think it's a little underrated. A little underrated. Now I have two books. One's, they're like variants and all that stuff. One's a variant and all that stuff. But, and it's a modern book, all right? I do think it's a little undervalued. And I do think it's a little underrated. I think it's a little bit of both. We'll start off with the first version of it, which is Strange Academy number 1. This book has a bunch of first appearances in it. A bunch of first appearances for those that like that sort of thing. And all Marvel has to do is put out a Disney Plus show focusing on Strange Academy, and I think this book will become even more valuable. I think it's about, right now, at a high grade, it's probably like around maybe $120, $150. Now, I know there are multiple covers of this, so I don't know how much the other covers go for, if the other covers are more valuable. So you'd have to correct me that in the comments with that. But I do think that this one's often overlooked. I think you get a nice 9.8 for a few $100. And like I said, all Disney Plus has to do, because they're just plenty of ideas out there that are being put onto the streaming network. All they have to do is come out Strange Academy, and then boom. And this is the other copy of it. This is the other copy I have. I like this one the best. I think this is the Ramos cover, if I'm not mistaken. Again, you could correct me in the comments, but that's my favorite. But again, so many of the variants you can pick up, I think, very, very cheap. Now I have a bunch of different books from the same series. These, I think, are undervalued. Some of them may stick out. Some of them may know what these are. You know, we're familiar with these covers, but I still think that they're kind of undervalued, in my personal opinion. Here we have Swamp Thing number 6, robot cover. Look at that cover. That cover is awesome. But I don't think this book goes for that much. And I don't think that it's highly recognized. So that makes it a little, obviously, undervalued, underrated. Now this one I think is more famous. Of the Swamp Thing covers I'm going to show, this is probably a little more famous. But again, I think that this is a little undervalued. I mean, not to say that anything I say is undervalued should be super expensive. No, but you would think that it would be more expensive. Swamp Thing number 9, classic Bernie Wrightson cover, right? Here is another one. I don't know. I don't think it's well known. I think it should be, but it's a pretty cool cover. The colors on it and just the way Wrightson draws it really, really pops. We have Swamp Thing number 11. It's really nice. And this is the last Swamp Thing for this. I just love the colors. I mean, I love the artwork too, but the colors on this just pop. And there was a reason why I chose these. There are other Swamp Things in the first series that I think are a little undervalued, underrated. But I wanted to stick with these for this video because of just the way they're drawn, just the way the colors pop. It's just, you would think that these books are books that a lot of people would like to have, but I guess I'm wrong. I don't see that. This one right here. What is it? Swamp Thing number 12. Look at the colors on that. The reds and the dark colors and the greens. It looks just wonderful. Absolutely wonderful. Okay, I got 2 more for this video, and then we're going to close it. Now, this is for some of you pre-code fans out there that I think is a little underrated. I personally think, although there are several in this run that people are starting to become more familiar with, there are people that were very familiar with it to begin with. But I think this series is a little underrated. Maybe not necessarily undervalued because they can be very expensive, but I prefer personally one for this type of series. I was shocked at seeing some of the magnificence of these covers. Now I only have one in this series. It's a low grade copy, but I think it's a little underrated. Here we have Shadow Comics Volume 7, number 12. Look at that. Nice graveyard cover. It's such a sinister cover. And again, it's a low grade. I would imagine it's very pricey in a high grade because of all black cover. But there are so many shadow books in this run that are just amazing. Skull covers, web covers. It's a classic pre-code. And again, it's from a series that I don't think, a lot of people, of course, when I say pre-code, a lot of superhero fans are, immediately not thought of, but I even think some pre-code horror collectors are not necessarily overly familiar with Shadow Comics. I could be wrong. And the very, very last one, I think this is another Golden Age book, like The Shadow. Again, a series that I would normally not suspect the type of cover content that's portrayed here. This is like unbelievable. Here we have Dick Tracy, number 50. Here you have the villain's shoulders shooting himself right in the head, and you see the bullet go right outside. Now, there's no blood or anything like that, like a horror comic or one of those other brutal crime covers that are EC or non-EC related. But this is like something that Dick Tracy is not necessarily known for being an adult-oriented book. It's something that appeals, I think, to all ages, but I think mainly kids. I think it's drawn in such a way for the old, and this really is just a collection of the old print, old serials that came out of the newspapers and put together in a comic book series called Dick Tracy Comics Monthly. But it's just amazing that this cover amazing that a Dick Tracy cover would have like this. Now I have a nice high grade copy, but I was able to get it really, really cheap a couple of years ago because, again, I think this was after those underrated videos came out when I stopped some of these. I started picking up these and started seeing more underrated books. I just never got around to doing them, but that's definitely one of them. I would never have thought that a Dick Tracy book or a Dick Tracy comic would have such a cover. It really is pretty, pretty cool. So those are just some books. I'll do another one soon. Very soon. Hopefully you like this video, and if you like the other video too, maybe I'll revive the series for a little while before I run out of things to show. But let me know what you think in the comments. Let me think what you think about some other underrated, undervalued books are out there, or perhaps in your collection. Take care, everyone.